Hello everyone. Last lesson, we introduced the refueling pipeline of the fuel transfer system. In this lesson, we will introduce the fuel delivery pipeline. In this page, there are altogether 3 transfer pumps. There are a heavy oil transfer pump, a diesel transfer pump, a light diesel transfer pump. Different types of fuel oil are delivered separately. Here's the thing to note that transfer pump is usually in the same quality of oil, different oil tank for the transfer. Instead of transferring between different quality fuels, for example, the operation should only be allowed to transfer the fuel from a heavy oil tank to a heavy oil settling tank, or other heavy oil tank through the heavy oil transfer pump, rather than carry on the fuel transfer between the light oil tank and the heavy oil tank. Open the round valve accidentally in the ship. A large mix of different grades of fuel. It may cause the mixed fuel to become completely unstable. So in the fuel transfer process, extra attention should be paid to valve switching. Next, we look at the light diesel delivery pipeline of the transfer pump. Filter is generally installed on the suction side of the transfer pump. The suction line in this page is to the left of the filter. The oil tanks connected with the suction line are light diesel fuel storage tank and light diesel fuel service tank, diesel fuel storage tank, and diesel fuel service tank. That means that in normal case, the light diesel oil transfer pump is used to transfer fuel oil from the light diesel oil storage tank to the light diesel oil service tank. But if the diesel pump fails, we can also use the relevant pipes and valves. Use light diesel pump to transport diesel oil between the storage tank and the service tank. Above is the intake side of the light diesel oil transfer pump. Now let's look at its outlet side. Observe which tanks the pump can transport fuel to. The fuel is pumped from the light diesel transfer pump through the oil pump outlet valve. It is divided into 2 paths in the node. One way connects to the light diesel service tank. This is a one-way valve. Fuel does not pass through the lower line. And another way connects to the service tank of diesel. Therefore, the light diesel transfer pump can deliver fuel to the 2 types of diesel service tank. This corresponds to the diesel storage tank just introduced, which can be connected to the suction inlet of the light diesel transfer pump. When transporting light diesel, transport the light diesel from the storage tank to the service tank. When transporting diesel, transport the diesel from the storage tank to the service tank. Fuel oil can be transported by switching the corresponding valves. Of course, the suction of the transfer pump is also connected to the service tanks. In special case, we can also transfer fuel oil from the utility tank to the storage tank. Above is a light diesel oil transfer pump related pipeline. Next, we introduce the pipeline of diesel oil transfer pump. Its pipeline is similar to light diesel transfer line. The filter is on the suction side. This is a one-way valve to ensure that fuel flows only from the left to the right. The settings of right piping and valves make this DO transfer pump can also be used to transport heavy oil. In special case, for example, this heavy oil transfer pump failure. Now the DO pump can be used to transport heavy oil. We can see from the outlet of the light oil pump, where the light and heavy oil are related to the pipeline. A one-way valve is installed here. This shows that in the special case, we allow to use the DO transfer pumps to transport heavy oil. Namely, we see the DO transfer pump as a heavy oil transfer pump. However, heavy oil transfer pump is not allowed to transport diesel. That is, heavy oil transfer pump cannot see as DO transfer pump. Here we can draw a conclusion. In the fuel transfer system page, although there are 3 transfer pumps, the 3 transfer pumps standby relationship is not the same. Light diesel transfer pump and diesel transfer pump are mutually standby. The pipes between them are connected. The inlet pipelines of DO transfer pump and heavy oil transfer pump are also connected. But only DO transfer pump do as heavy oil transfer pump. This is equivalent to having 2 diesel transfer pumps and 2 heavy oil transfer pumps. Under normal circumstances, we use DO transfer pump to suck fuel oil from the pipe on the left. The tanks on the left includes that, the DO storage tank, the DO service tank, also through the upper pipeline. It is also connected to the light diesel storage tank and the service tank. There are the 4 oil tanks which are connected to the suction side of the diesel transfer pump. Diesel transfer pump outlet side. Except for the pipeline connected to the heavy oil and the line that carries heavy oil back to heavy oil. Under normal circumstances, the outlet of the oil pump returns the diesel-related tank through the pipeline above. It divides into 2 paths here, similar to the light diesel pump outlet introduced earlier. One way through this pipe backs to the DO service tank normally. The other way through the upper pipe backs to the light diesel service tank. It depends on the quality of the oil being transported, and it can also go through this pipeline. Open this valve, backs to the refueling manifold of diesel. At this point, the oil manifold can be connected to the oil tank. The outlet of the diesel pump can also be connected through the oil manifold. Another important function leads to the refueling manifold. It's a way to transport diesel to the diesel oil station. It is then transported to shore at the diesel oil station. This is needed for tank cleaning. There are the entire diesel delivery pipelines. The piping arrangement of heavy oil is similar to diesel in principle. The oil tanks connected with the oil pump suction inlet have fuel oil overflow tank, 4 storage tanks for heavy oil. Through the outlet line above the oil pump, the node has 2 paths. The left pipe connects to the number 1 heavy oil settling tank and number 2 heavy oil settling tank. The right line is connected to the heavy oil filling manifold through this valve, which is similar to the diesel presentation. Tanks that can be connected when heavy oil is refueling. The heavy oil transfer pump can also transfer the fuel to the corresponding tanks. This allows the heavy oil to be transported between different storage tanks. On the other hand, it's similar to diesel. When preparing to wash the tanks, we can also transfer fuel to the refueling manifold, and then from the diesel oil station to the shore, to empty the tanks. This is the related piping of the heavy oil transfer pump. Here we focus on this oil overflow tank. All fuel storage tanks have overflow functions. To ensure when the tank level is high, safe oil overflow can be carried out. We can see it in the page. Each of the 4 storage tanks has an overflow viewing mirror. Through these observation mirrors, we can see whether the current fuel oil overflow. The overflow observation mirror is generally set at a higher position of the oil tank. If the level in the tank exceeds the inlet of the overflow line, then the fuel oil in the tank will overflow through the overflow pipe. Through the overflow line, oil can come to this overflow tank. Oil overflow tank is generally equipped with high-level alarm when the oil overflow tank level reached the alarm value. It will lead to the detection and alarm system. Send a warning to the engineer. In addition to the overflow function of the 4 heavy oil storage tanks, the 2 heavy oil settling tanks also have overflow function. Fuel oil transfer from settling tanks is the most frequently used in ship operation. Because as long as the main engine is running, the oil in the service oil tank is constantly being consumed. Settling tanks needs to be transported constantly oil to the service tanks. As a result, the amount of fuel in the settling tanks is decreasing. Under normal circumstances, 1 or 2 refueling operations will be performed on the settling tanks every day of the voyage. Transfer fuel oil from the storage tanks to the settling tanks. Once there is a mistake in oil transfer operation, or the automatic control device fails, the fuel level in the settling tank will keep rising. When the level is above the overflow line, fuel will automatically overflow into the overflow tank to ensure the safety of equipment. Similarly, when the settling tanks dispense the oil into the service tanks will exist a similar situation. Because in a ship, the oil separator is set to work 24 hours a day. Continuously transfer clean fuel to service tank. Because the amount of fuel added is greater than the amount of fuel consumed, service oil tank level will continue to increase. Therefore, the service oil tank should also set overflow pipe. However, no overflow pipeline is drawn to the oil tank at this page. The reason is in fuel oil from the service tanks will overflow directly back to the settling tanks. The overflow line height of service tanks will be slightly higher than that of settling tanks, and the service tanks and settling tanks are usually adjacent. Some ships pass through holes between adjacent bulkheads. Some go through external pipes to control the overflow of these 2 tanks. So this is what the overflow looks like. Service tank overflow back to settling tank. Settling tank and storage tank overflow back to overflow tank. If we confirm that the fuel quality of overflow tank is not contaminated, it can also go down the pipe. The fuel oil in the overflow tank is redelivered to the heavy oil precipitation tank through the heavy oil transfer pump. Above is the introduction of the fuel transfer pipelines.